forwards. I'd start by saying this month I've been here for 5 years, and it's been great, and we've absolutely loved it. And if you're wondering where God is leading you, like in the future or at any point in different stages of your life, can I just encourage you, taking heed of God's leading leads to wonderful things. We are so glad to have heard his voice and to have moved up here. The tendency of pretty much every vicar is to say, what a car crash you were before I arrived, and now it's all wonderful. And I would say in our church that is absolutely not true. We were a brilliant church before I turned up, and there are a few things that we have been working on in the last 5 years. So here is a little bit of insight for you, hopefully. That's our mission statement, if you like. It comes out hopefully in everything we do to be a blessing to our communities, inviting every generation to know God and find their place in his family. That's what we exist for. And so we focused on 4 things. The first thing we focused on is being family. So we've had a social calendar, we've had welcome lunches, we focused on life groups, men's and women's groups, an annual church camp, and so on. There's a lot that we've done to try and help us to know each other and to be family. 5.5 years ago, you did a little survey about how the church was doing, and one thing people said was coffee time is a bit awkward. We're a bit cliquey. And I would say we are not that church. Partly we've worked on family a lot, but I very often look out at coffee time and I think, who do I need to talk to? Perhaps who's new, who perhaps is struggling a little bit. And nearly always I look out and find some of you have already talked to people. You've already made people feel welcome. So we've done a lot about family, about being family together. The second thing we focused on was about discipleship, and that's for all ages and stages as well, right down to the children's groups, youth, and adults as well. So, for example, I write Bible notes that go to all of the life groups that try and go, what's in the Bible and how does it connect to your day-to-day life? And it's that connection that's really important between the two. We did discipleship courses together. We looked at Following the Way and other courses. We had Deeper that met yesterday. That's 4 times a year, a chance to go deeper in our understanding of the Bible. We've experimented with meditative prayer, nights of prayer 24/7. Jim and the music bands are at both services have helped us to encounter God, to know him and to see him at work in our lives. Discipleship has been really important. And I hope that if you're part of our church that you would consider joining a group, because that's such a good way of going deeper with God. Third thing that we've done is we've blessed our communities. We are in lots and lots of different places in our communities. We're working in schools more than we've done probably in a long time. We are in all of our local schools, and we're supporting other people to go into some of their local schools as well. The Holiday Club have been such a blessing to our families. We've had Kinzuki Mental Health, CAP Money Advice, Joyful Craft, Ukraine Cafe, Connect Coffee Mornings, Toddlers, Baby Saints, Family Life Group, etc. Lots and lots of things where we hope we're doing good in the way that people want to receive that. We've also been thinking about how do we make sure all of our ministries give people the opportunity to find out about Jesus. And so right from toddlers all the way through, we've thought in everything that we do, we want people to come along and say, if I've got questions about Jesus, this is somewhere I could go to find out about them. We've been mulling over then, how do we make that easier for people? So for example, Connect have started doing little things on tables, and we've started the Connect discussion group. And all of this is about saying, come and enjoy the thing that we are putting on, but also come and discover about Jesus. I've been hugely encouraged by the stories that we've shared, stories about changed lives, stories even this morning about what God is at work. So in all of these areas, youth, children, and adults, we're joining together and growing in faith and growing to love each other. An enormous thanks to all of you. Sometimes I talk to church leaders and they'll say, well, 10% of our people do all of the work, do all the volunteering. And I think that's just not true in our church. Pretty much all of us are involved serving in one way or another. Our thanks to Diane for making sure that this is a safe space. Our thanks to our staff team. They are just wonderful, and we are so grateful for them. To our admin team who keeps us working well, pastoral and preaching and leading, our worship teams, all of our ministries and outreach, and all of you who pray, thank you for making this a wonderful church. So a few things as we look forwards. This is the main thing I'd love to bring to you today. It's out of Isaiah 54. And we start with a really simple idea. That we focused for the last 5 years on how do we reach out, how do we bless our communities, how do we get confident in doing like David did and talking to his neighbors about Jesus. And you can't do all that without growing a church. That's going to be a very straightforward kind of thing. The more that you reach out, the more you're likely to see your church grow. And so a word that keeps being brought to us is this out of Isaiah 54. And if you'd like to open a Bible, this might just help us a bit, because backtracking a little bit to Isaiah 53, 53 is the super famous bit about Jesus coming and how him dying on the cross and rising means that we can be forgiven and that we can know God. That's Isaiah 53. And Isaiah 54 then goes into the so what, if you like. It's about saying, well, imagine if you were someone who couldn't have children and you were heading towards the end of your life and your womb had been closed, or however the Bible describes it, which it sometimes does. But then God then brings children into your life anyway. And so Isaiah 54 really builds on Isaiah 53 and says, look, through faith, this is how the people of God can grow. This is how God is going to do something miraculous. It's addressed to a barren woman. And I did a bit of research, and back when this was written, women were the ones who put the tents up. I don't know if you find that at festivals and stuff you go to, but that was certainly the case back then. And so you could imagine this woman making the tent bigger, reading this bit and thinking, well, how does that work? Because I haven't yet got the people to fill the tent. I haven't yet got that. And so it says, so enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your curtains wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. It's a picture of how do you make room for more people to explore who Jesus is all about. How can more people be brought in? It's a picture of bravery. And I've been talking to quite a number of people about the fact we are hitting our capacity. Now, I knew that we weren't going to this morning for our APCM, but usually we are, particularly at our 10:45 and in some of our other ministries. You might have noticed as you go through for coffee that room used to have loads of chairs in it, and it doesn't because they're in here. So we went from about 170 seats, we're currently about 210. And there's a few things that I've learned as I've been around to talk to other church leaders who've been on that same journey of your church growing and what do you do next. Here's a few things. The first one is, when you're 80% full, you're full. The general evidence is that if you try and grow beyond that, you find that people come sporadically, that people don't feel like they know that they can serve, that they don't easily meet people. And so the time to start thinking about this is when you are about 80% full. We are about 80% full every week at our 10:45. Second thing is, new things grow. 4 and a bit years ago, we sent out St. Paul's as a church planting team from us. There are about 50 people every Sunday. The evidence, again, from lots and lots of churches is if you start something new, it tends to grow more than your existing things. Partly because it's got that oomph of growing and you kicked it off. Partly because people look around and think, well, there's empty seats around me. These are people who could be coming to find out about Jesus. Here's the third thing that I learned in talking to different people. It might seem a little bit left field. If you are a pizza restaurant and your business grows, you don't open a McDonald's. Yeah? So if you're a pizza business and your pizza business grows, you tend to then go, well, let's open another pizza business because clearly what we're doing is working, and let's do more of the same again. Now, obviously, we're not a pizza business, we're not a restaurant, but a good question to ask ourselves is, what are we doing that is growing and is flourishing, and maybe we need to have a bit more of? So in our case, I would say services that have youth and children's alongside them is something that we're seeing really grow. So I've already been talking to Kat and Catherine about what would it mean for us to maybe have another service that has youth and children's alongside it. Now, I can't ever imagine us being a church that doesn't have a variety of styles of service. And it's the case that we need to think, if we're busting at the seams for our 10 to 45, we then need another service that is going to help more people to be able to come in and to explore faith. Now, if you read people like John Piper, who's a church leader in the States, who's written about this, he talks about all the things that are needed to go from the size of church we are to being a bigger church. And he says a few things. I'll tell you a few of them. He says, often people feel excited and nervous. Can I tell you I felt that this morning? Excited and nervous. You might feel the same. Will I know everybody? Will I have a place? Will I fit? Which service would I go to? Will we get all professional? Can I tell you we won't? What will it look like? There's all those questions for us to mull over. But there are also, he highlights, lots of things in our favor. You need a strong life group system. You need good admin support so people don't get lost. You need in your DNA of your church a desire to go deep with God and reach out. The vicar must not do all the pastoral care. And we're already in lots of ways heading in the right directions. Lots and lots of the pieces are in place. But I've really felt challenged. What would a God-sized dream for All Saints look like? Now, I don't mean to turn us into TVCC or Hillsong or whatever, HTB. What would it look like to keep our DNA, to keep the sort of shape of the tent, if you like, but to make it bigger? What would that look like? So here's just a mulling over for you. What if we said we were going to try and go from 200 to 400? What would that look like? What would the space need to be like? I think God is already taking us in that direction. And I still want to retain a lot of the things that are really key to us. An analogy that keeps helping me is this one. You know when you get a Lego box of stuff, and on the front it's got a picture, and that helps you to know what you're building. I want you to imagine that you had a Lego box without a picture, and that you just looked at all the pieces in the box, and you thought, what am I going to build with this? What's it meant to be? As I look at our church, our sort of Lego box, we have some amazing evangelists. We have some incredible gathering people. We have loads of children's and youth helpers. We have worship people who are incredible. And I would say, if you didn't know what the outside of the box looked like, you'd think these are the parts for a bigger church. Not bigger for the sake of it, but bigger so that we reach more people, so more people can discover a relationship with Jesus. I think God has, interestingly, been in the last 18 months bringing us various people that are the people that we're going to need in addition to the people that we have. So what I'd love us to do this year as a PCC is to begin the process of a few months of hearing from you. And so we're going to make sure that there's a chance for all of you to feed back and to say, what do you love about All Saints? What's key to the shape of our tent, to our DNA? And how do you feel about that growing bigger? What would that look like? Then as a PCC, we're going to have a look at your feedback. We're going to try and pray over it and then come back to you with a proposal. What do we think the next steps might be? Now, the temptation for some of you, like me, is to leapfrog that whole consultation process, to say, we'll just decide it over coffee. We'll be done by like 12:30 and we'll have a new plan as to where we're heading and what services need to look like and how this bigger tent might look. But as I encourage myself, I would encourage you as well to think, how do we pray about this? I was talking to Philip Plimming, who's the dean of our cathedral. He used to lead a church like ours in the south. And by the time he left, they'd grown it a lot. And one of the things he said to me is, you need to have a longer thinking process, a time for all of you to have a say, a time to go, here are all of the options, and then a chance to say, this is what I think God is leading us to in the next step. So please do expect that at some point we're going to be asking you, what are your views on this? But also, can I encourage you to pray? How is God going to grow this church that we might have an increased impact? In line with this, you'll probably be aware that we've already begun in some ways to step into that future. This is a bit that was from our diocesan strategy about youth hubs. And so to be a youth hub, our aspiration is to roughly double our number of young people in the next 3 years, as well as supporting 2 other churches in growing their youth ministry. It's the reason we hired Maddie. It's one of the reasons that we need to think a bit more about our capacity and our space. So Maddie was part of that increasing of capacity, but also we've got 2 10-2 volunteers. We're looking at MEV opportunities, which is like people who do like a gap year to explore working in a church. And we need to wonder about how to grow our teams. Children's and families ministry is also going great, and we're seeing growth in those areas too, and we want to push out and see what God is going to do there. In the next year, I'm expecting to renovate the library to give us a bit more space on a Sunday morning. Youth and children, and possibly trying to find a space to do some sort of introductory to faith stuff, even within a sermon sort of slot, so that those who turn up who have never been in a church might just pop out for 15 minutes, go have something that's kind of really appropriate, a bit like Alpha, and then come back in again. So there's all different ways that we might use that space. But I wanted to end by just coming back to that image. The image is about the tent, but as you'll notice at the end of that, strengthening your stakes. And what that means is you don't put in tiny pegs for a massive tent. We've got a big event shelter at home. We've got pegs. They're not pegs. And for us, those pegs are going to mean, how do we keep our structure? How do we make sure that we don't lose that family feel? How do we not lose that we want to go hard after God? How do we not lose the DNA of what God's done here so far that is really good? So that's where I feel that God's leading us. Now, in previous years, we've done kind of an open questions, but I thought partly for the sake of introverts, partly for the sake of all of us, it would be better to have a different way of doing things today. So our welcome team are going to hand out some little slips of paper. You're welcome to write a question on it, something that this has made you think about. But while you're waiting for your slip, feel free to talk to your neighbour and ask them some of their thoughts. What do you think about this? If you've written your question, please do put it in Lucy's box and she'll bring them up and we'll have a go at offering some initial answers. One thing I'd forgotten to say earlier is that because we've got the right number of deanery synod reps and PCC and wardens, that they are duly elected, so we didn't need to vote on them at that point, but we have elected them. Okay, so I'm going to have a start on a few of them. If you're still writing this and you've heard your one being dealt with already, then yeah, feel free. So here are the questions. A larger building or more services? It's a good question. At the moment, I'd probably say that we are minded for more services rather than extending the building. For two reasons. One is it's really expensive to extend the building. We could do it. But the other thing is that actually above a certain amount of congregation size, you end up just attracting Christians and not actually reaching out very well. So there's a bit of both. But we haven't written that off, but I don't think it's on the PCC's mind to do that just at the moment. Yeah, so new people will bring both more funds and also more skills. Probably more mess as well. That's okay. How might deeper stakes connect to the preaching and teaching that we gather together? Topics and tone. I think it would be a great chance for us to then think through what are we doing. At the moment, our preaching series is all about a big overview of the Bible to help us to then reach out and talk to other people about the Bible. So a bit like David's going to be doing. That's what our preaching series currently is all about. But I think we certainly do need to think, how do we celebrate risk more, jar of risk, etc.? How do we go deeper in our faith? Okay, yeah. Sorry, that wasn't really a question. Would we make the campsite bigger? Yeah, so that's a buildings question, so we've talked about that a little bit. Can we maintain the 9 a.m. ethos for older people or introverts or other people while having space for younger people, ideally? Yes. So one of the reasons that I want to do this kind of a survey of our whole church is to think, what does the whole picture look like? And think, well, actually, if we put all the options on the table, what could a Sunday look like? Could we have any services midweek? And certainly I do aim, and I think we will, keep a service that doesn't look like the 10:45 does at the moment. We are always going to have a mixed variety of services in our church. Yeah, there's a possibility that we might make an afternoon service. The only challenge of an afternoon service is that if anyone needs to serve in 2 services, you've got to come back. And that makes life a little bit more difficult. Possibly we could do services for young people. Yeah, that's not off the table. Let me understand that one. Possibly an evening service, although we want to grow with new people, not people coming to services twice in the day, so we need to think a bit about that. How do we focus on different areas of our parish, including areas of deprivation? That's really important for us, and we're going to keep picking that question up. That's really important. More church planting is an interesting idea. We have looked at different areas to plant, and if you've got a suggestion, do talk to me. So far, the options that we've explored are not ones that we could go forwards with, but certainly church planting could be there somewhere in what we plan to do. So do we plant more churches? We could. I think initially we're going to plant congregations. Okay. Again, possibly in the evening service. That's good. Yeah, so we could mix some of our styles. Again, all of that's kind of on the table. And we need to grow new leaders. That's certainly true, although we have got more leaders and preachers than spaces to use them in at the moment. So we have already God's built that capacity for us. A question about, can we put youth and children's alongside existing services, possibly the 9 o'clock? That's certainly an option. Can we grow the 9 o'clock service? I would love to do that. If people have got more ideas, I think one of the reasons the 9 o'clock isn't growing in the way that it might is if we had youth or children's alongside it. But then we need to think, is it the right style for the adults who will come with those children? So that's just a question we need to mull over. So we do need to grow our volunteers, which is certainly true. We do need to keep praying about this, absolutely. Could people who have been involved in different ministries in the past find a new place in the future? That's certainly something that I'd love us to do, and one of the questions that we'd love to raise. And we don't want to be split into ages. That's a good question. We don't want a service for older people, a service for middle-aged people, a service for younger people. That's not where we're heading. I don't want us to head in that direction. I don't think it feels like church if we do. We certainly want to make sure we maintain connection to other people and that we don't just become bigger and get a bit lost. A suggestion about church planting, and then a suggestion about knocking down some walls, which we could think about. Yeah, there's a lot of big questions, isn't there? We'll come back to those, and I'll bring them to PCC so that we can think about them more. Nicola, you're going to lead us in some prayers about all of this.